I'm Andy and welcome to my channel about crypto. This video is a bit of an introduction to the whole crypto space, so it's aimed mainly at either those who are completely new to this or maybe have very little understanding, very little experience with crypto or NFTs. So in this video, I'll be talking about what actually is crypto, what are NFTs, what is web3, what is the metaverse, and well, in short, why you should care about it, all of it. What are the use cases either now or in relatively near future and a bit more distant future as well. And yeah, why essentially people are getting interested in it and why it's worth getting interested in it at this particular point in time. This is just a very short video because, of course, to properly explain all those concepts, well, it would probably take a couple of hours and I didn't want to make it too long and too overwhelming. But if you're interested in exploring them further, or if some of it doesn't fully make sense, please put your questions and comments in the comment section or join my Discord, which is linked in the description. Or if you're really interested in exploring the crypto space, please join my course, Crypto Like a Pro, and I'll put the link in the description as well. Okay, so what is crypto or what are cryptocurrencies? Well, I think it's easiest to define by three main characteristics. It's a digital currency, it's decentralized, and it's public or transparent. So when I say digital currency, if we think about traditional money, well, it all started as banknotes and coins, something physical. Right now, we are used to money being in various electronic formats. Essentially, it's just a number on the screen and a bit of plastic, a credit card or an app on the phone that allows us to authorize purchases. So we don't really deal with physical money that much anymore. Digital currency is just the next step forward. Essentially, it's a currency that's not tied to the traditional fiat currency such as dollars or pounds or any other currency, but it's something completely new, like, for example, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was created as a digital method of payment, a currency that was not tied to any particular bank or country or anything else. And the second aspect of that was that it was built on a peer-to-peer network. It was completely decentralized. So traditional currencies are issued by central banks. And basically there's always a central entity that controls that currency or any other asset. When it comes to cryptocurrencies, there is no central entity anymore. Of course, someone has to issue it initially, someone has to create it. But once that cryptocurrency is created, there is a whole network of computers, nodes, which verify transactions. And there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, there could be millions of them. And anyone can create a node for every blockchain. Sure, sometimes it can be quite complex or expensive, but there is absolutely nothing stopping anyone from becoming another node on the network. And each of those nodes, each of those computers helps in verifying all the transactions. And each of those computers holds a copy of the blockchain itself. So there's no one central server that can be hacked and taken down. There's no one central organization that can just go offline and no one can access their own funds. Basically, it's all decentralized. So that provides the security for the whole network. It also means that no one can manipulate that blockchain, no one can manipulate that record because there are thousands, hundreds of thousands other copies of it, and all other nodes would not verify that fake blockchain. So the only way to hack a blockchain would be to take control over 51% of the network, which in theory is possible, but it's just so expensive that it's extremely, extremely unlikely. It's a bit like trying to hack the internet. And then finally, the last aspect of cryptocurrencies is that they are public, they're transparent. So basically all transactions are recorded on the blockchain and everyone can access that blockchain. You can quite easily go online onto blockchain explorers such as, let's say, Etherscan for Ethereum blockchain, and you can see all the transactions that are being processed. You can see what's contained in every block, in every set of transactions. You can trace how the funds are moving. So although there are no names attached to every transaction because they are just wallet addresses, you can still see how everything is moving. And while it's in theory possible, of course, to hide transactions when it comes to crypto, it actually takes quite a bit of effort. By default, cryptocurrencies are designed to be completely transparent. And again, that means that no one can easily manipulate it. Just try to imagine what would happen in a world when crypto is widely accepted, and let's say that you pay your taxes in crypto, suddenly you would be able to see exactly what your taxes are being spent on, because they're coming out from your account to the government's account. And then you can see where they are going further, whether they're going on, I don't know, let's say towards the cost of building a new hospital or buying some politician's car, right? So it's probably quite an utopian example, but I think it's quite an interesting and good way to visualize what's possible with crypto and what's one of the main benefits of everything being transparent. So now let's look at NFTs. So NFT is a simply non-fungible token. And all that does mean is essentially unique. So it's a token just like any other cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies are tokens. But what makes it different is that each NFT token is completely different. It's completely unique. So a normal cryptocurrency is a bit like money. Let's say you have a $10 note, you can exchange it for another $10 note, and they're both worth exactly same amount, $10. With NFTs, it's a bit more like, let's say, having a painting, and you cannot then just simply exchange it for another painting, because it would be very difficult to find another one of exactly same value. So each NFT is designed to be completely unique, to represent something completely unique, either a digital asset or a physical asset. And that's the important thing. A lot of people may think that, oh, NFT is just a JPEG of a monkey or something else, because that's what generally is hitting the mass media. Well, actually it isn't. It's not about the image or whatever else that NFT is representing. NFT itself is just a bit of code written on a blockchain that essentially proves the origin and ownership of a digital or physical asset. So if you imagine, let's say, a print by a famous photographer, well, that print, if it's physical, could be signed, could have some sort of certificate attached to it, and this way you can prove that this original print worth thousands of dollars. But we're living in an increasingly digital world. So how do you prove that, let's say, a digital image is the original piece, original file provided by that photographer? Well, you would need some sort of digital proof of authenticity, and that proof of authenticity is an NFT. So this way you could prove that any sort of digital asset is actually that one unique asset. And again, because it's all recorded on the blockchain, you can see exactly where it came from. As long as the artist's wallet address is public, you can see that, yes, that particular NFT actually came from that artist. And you can then trace the whole path where it's currently, whether that piece that you want to buy, it's actually the original piece. And then when you buy it, well, you have the proof of ownership of that original piece. But it could be absolutely anything. NFTs could be tickets to a music gig. It could be just a digital copy of something physical you own. Let's say you buy a new pair of Nike trainers. You could also get a 3D model of that, which would have an NFT attached to it, which you could then wear, or your avatar could wear in the metaverse. I'll be talking a little about metaverse in a minute. So crypto and NFTs been quite popular, especially over recent months, and well, in case of crypto, quite a few years. There are two terms that started appearing a lot in the recent months, which a lot of people are probably less familiar with, and that's Web3 and metaverse. So let's start with Web3. The easiest way to explain it is that essentially is the next version of the internet. So if you look at this comparison here, we have Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. Web 1, broadly speaking, was the internet from its inception in the late 80s and early 90s, all the way up to around 2005, essentially when social media platforms started appearing or started gaining more and more traction. So Web 1 was, generally speaking, quite slow, crude, and expensive. You needed a hardwired connection to your device, usually desktop or laptop computer. Internet connections were slow, they were quite expensive, often quite unreliable. Therefore, it wasn't very popular. Web 1 was built largely for companies. Essentially, at least, especially in the early days, not many individuals could really afford it, or even if they could afford it, there wasn't really that much sense, there wasn't much incentive to use the internet. However, the companies could actually benefit from it, either by using email or transferring data and so on. It was, however, quite decentralized. So there weren't huge companies that would control large chunks of the internet. Essentially, every website or every company had their own little chunk of it, which then changed in Web 2, but I will talk about that in a minute. But because it was also quite crude and quite difficult to create and relatively difficult to access, there weren't really that many content creators. Of course, yes, you could create your own website, but that required knowing HTML. You couldn't just simply use a template on, I don't know, WordPress or one of many other platforms as you can do it now. You had to actually write the code yourself. Also, there weren't platforms such as Instagram or Facebook or Twitter to share your opinions, to share the images and so on. It was much more difficult to be content creator, and even if you created something, it would be accessed by a relatively small number of people. So Web 1 was largely read-only. And then in terms of what it was powered by, well, essentially homepages. There weren't, again, social media platforms. There wasn't really anything like that. Early web was just a large collection of homepages of either businesses or individuals, but it was all relatively simple. Then in around sort of 2005, we started seeing the beginning of Web 2. And Web 2 is still what we are used to until, well, now. And the main difference was that, well, there were a couple of main differences. First of all, the internet, access to the internet became much faster, much cheaper. And also especially around 2007, when the first iPhone came out, it became much more omnipresent. Suddenly, everyone could have a device with them at all times, which was capable of accessing internet. And actually, the browsing experience was really, really good. If you remember how accessing the internet looked like before smartphones, well, yes, in theory, you could do it, but for doing anything more than sending emails, it was pretty much unusable. It was quite horrible experience. So this shifted massively in sort of 2005, 2007. Also, another big shift was that the Web 2 was built for communities. That's when Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and many other big social media platforms started appearing and gaining a lot of traction. That also meant that suddenly everyone became content creator. Everyone started posting photos of what they ate for breakfast, tweets about what they think at the moment, where they went on holiday and stuff like that. Suddenly, billions of people started creating tons and tons of content. But this content is owned by relatively few companies, so it's really centralized. We have Meta, or formerly Facebook, owning not only Facebook itself, but also Instagram, WhatsApp, and a few other platforms. Google owns YouTube and so on. And essentially, it's all in the hands of 5 to 10 companies. So while everyone is creating content, people are not really benefiting from it because they don't really own it, if that makes sense. So what's happening now? What's Web 3? How does it differ from the current or previous version of the internet, depending how you want to look at it? Well, Web 3 is present now. It's still being developed. We are in this transition phase between Web 2 and Web 3. And I'm sure Web 3 won't be the final version of the internet. I'm sure there will be Web 4 eventually and so on. But what we can expect from Web 3 is that, first of all, it will be even more omnipresent. So we will see virtual reality and augmented reality added to it. A lot of companies already offer VR headsets. Many companies are working on AR headsets, so augmented reality. So basically, the idea is that in the next few years, our main computer won't be a phone or a tablet or a laptop, but actually a set of AR glasses. And we'll be able to display in our field of vision vast majority of the information, vast majority of the information we currently access via our mobile phone. So there will be even more integration between our sort of real life and the internet. Also, the idea is that Web 3 is built for individuals. It's not built for companies. It's not built for communities. But everyone can actually own their little bit of the internet. That's the big change. It's no longer read or read and write. It's read, write, and own. And that ownership is the possibility of that ownership is created by the blockchain technology. That's what powers web3. It allows through use the cryptocurrencies and NFTs to actually own an asset, own literally anything in web3. You create something and you own it. So you're no longer just a content creator. Everyone can be a creator of digital assets, and those assets can have actual value. You can create something in an online game. I don't know, maybe build something on some land or gain a valuable weapon or something like that, and then sell that as an NFT. You can create other content on the internet and make it accessible by purchasing NFT tickets and stuff like that. So we're seeing essentially this shift, or we will be seeing this shift from big corporations, very few big corporations having the control over the internet, to individuals having control of their own little corners of the internet, if that makes sense. And what this also means is that internet will go back to being decentralized, just like it was in Web 1. Again, because there won't be huge companies controlling everything, everyone will have more power, and therefore it will be all a bit more balanced. Okay, so then what is the metaverse? And sometimes metaverse and Web3 are being used interchangeably. I don't think that's entirely correct, because there are some differences, or there are also certainly some similarities. Well, if you watch the movie Ready Player One, then you have a pretty good idea of how metaverse can look like. Another good example would be something like movie like Free Guy, or even Matrix is not actually that far off. But this is all still probably quite far into the future, especially Matrix. However, we are already living in a primitive version of the metaverse. Essentially, we spend a lot of time online doing activities that we would do in a real life in the past. So we share content on social media platforms. We communicate with friends and family members via, let's say, WhatsApp. We communicate with work colleagues via Teams or Zoom, or with clients. And then if you imagine all of those platforms, but even more immersive and combined with either augmented or virtual reality, that's essentially the idea of the metaverse. It's not necessarily just sitting with a VR headset all the time and being permanently connected to the computer, but it's more like in various online platforms, either games or social media or work collaboration platforms, where you can move from one platform to another with just one avatar, which of course you can customize whenever you want. But rather than having to log in separately to all of those platforms and have like a different identity in all of them, you could create your one online identity and move that identity between those different platforms. And those platforms will be further enhanced, made more immersive by the use of AR or VR. That's, broadly speaking, the idea of the metaverse. And the metaverse cannot really exist without NFTs and crypto. It's all powered by the blockchain technology. That's how it's all linked, because basically you need that ownership. For example, you need to have ownership of that avatar or whatever assets that avatar may be wearing or showing and so on. So that would be your NFTs. So if at this point you think that this is all a little bit of a sci-fi, and yeah, it sounds quite interesting, but it's so far into the future that it's not really relevant. Well, a lot of this shift is happening right now. A lot of companies, that's including Meta, so formerly Facebook, HTC, Apple, Microsoft, and a few others, they are working either on brand new or updated versions of the VR and AR headsets. A lot of those headsets will be released late this year or early next year. So essentially we can expect that a lot of it will be happening in the next 6 to 18 months. And if you read many reports published by either Accenture or Deloitte, A16Z, and many other companies or consulting companies, you will see that actually there's a huge focus right now in many boardrooms on figuring out how the metaverse will impact doing business in the future. Basically, companies and individuals who right now think that, oh, it's okay to ignore it because it's all so far into the future that we don't have to think about it right now. Essentially, the same companies and individuals who miss the opportunity to be really early to setting up their website or their social media platform 10, 15, 20 years ago. So what I'm trying to say is that it always is a huge benefit to be early to the game rather than trying to catch up when everyone else started already doing it. I hope you found this video helpful. Like I said, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section. If you'd like to explore this space further, please join my course, Crypto Like a Pro. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.